Hi everyone, and welcome back to Talking Points with KPI, episode number 49. Thank you guys for all the support, and please go subscribe to the YouTube channel at Kinetic Institute. Please go there and follow and subscribe, and make sure that you get all of our updates on our podcasts and stuff like that. Please follow on iTunes and rate us there. Helps us out a lot. So this podcast is going to be about college winter training. So we have Erik, Chase, and Dan today to help us talk about it. So I'm just going to open it up. Really, I want to talk about how college baseball players, right, we tend to kind of think that since they're colleges, we're just going to let their colleges take care of it. Talk about how their development really needs to be cared about.
I mean, winter's a huge time for college athletes. They have quite a bit of break, between their finals and then having to go back. Obviously, it depends on what level they're at and what time they have to go back. But, normally between the week of Thanksgiving and then from finals to having to report back at some point in January, there's at least 4 or 5 weeks there, at least, to kind of work with. And I think too many college athletes just take that time off. Oh, it's the holidays. Oh, I have my break and rest. The landscape's so competitive in college baseball right now. We're still dealing with COVID rosters, so we have ultra-large rosters that tend to be older, with older players, which make things more competitive. And then just in general, with training facilities like ours and scouting service and the ability to take players and move them up the ranks, college baseball has never been more competitive. So if you're going to take those 4 to 6 weeks off, you're really cheating yourself. So what we're going to do this winter is just provide basically unlimited training for the college athletes while they're home, starting the week of Thanksgiving. Offer free assessments the week of Thanksgiving to kind of get them up and running, and then give them a ton of structure that they can follow between strength, pitching, hitting, throwing, warm-ups, all the stuff that we do here. They're going to have really what we would provide normally at a really, really high price, at a really valuable price, because we really want them to get in here because it is that important.
Yeah. So talk about, Chase, so kind of doing this, right, not new, obviously not new to it, but new to this space.
Sure.
How have you seen the systems from high school also be able to translate to a higher level?
Well, it's interesting because it's, with not a lot of time, it's really your one chance to kind of get ahead, right? And so obviously taking even just the high school approach and then doubling down at the higher level, you're training a level above. Mm-hmm. And you really only get one shot, while a lot of people are taking breaks, to Erik's point, to be able to go and try to make a team or get a starting spot. And these 4 or 5 weeks is the only chance that you're going to be able to get, and we have to go.
Absolutely.
It's just, there's not that much time.
And then Dan, bringing it full circle with the weight room, I want you to just kind of bring up the importance of not, and obviously we're not saying do whatever you want in the weight room, but that systematic weight room piece, talk about how that kind of completes the whole thing.
I think it's with the older athletes, it's accountability.
Yeah.
It's doing, what you need to do. You are in a system. You've been given a lifting routine or a hitting routine, a throwing routine. All those things have been given to you. To actually execute it to the level that needs to be done to give you a shot to compete. Yeah. And I think the layer that we bring to it is the individualization. Yeah. College programs don't have the capacity to individualize to 20, 30, 40, 50 players. On top of the fact that they need to take into account recruiting and okay, what's the game plan for this team, what's the scouting we're doing, everything that comes with managing a team. Mm-hmm. Me worried about your shoulder internal rotation or your data, all those things, they just don't have the capacity or time to do that. That's the average college program. There are some that do create that capacity, and they have phenomenal developmental systems built out, but the average player, within the average college program, you're just not going to get that. So in the weight room, it's really just a maintenance thing, and making sure that you're primed and ready to compete. And I think the winter is, I'd say my recommendation is you're going to probably really try and crush November, early December, and then you're going to start kind of transitioning to a maintenance mode of I want to feel really, really good going into my college spring, if you're going to play. Yeah. If you're an underclassman, you need to crush year round. There is no in-season for you, because you need to have that mindset of, I need to be prepared for that opportunity in the next year or two, because you're likely, like Erik was saying, you're likely not playing right away if you're a freshman in a good program.
And on that point, once they get back to school in January and they start practices 7 days a week, and they roll into games, that stretch of the spring, it's extremely hard for them to lift regularly and do strength training. So they need to create a base over the winter that they can kind of maintain and ride out over the course of the spring, because we know how challenging it is for them to do that. So you start looking at this as an entire calendar. If they take the winter off and don't do much because it's the holidays, they want to hang out and they're tired from school, then they don't lift very much in the spring. You're talking from end of November through May, they haven't had a structured, consistent program. That's a recipe for disaster in development. So, all these reasons that we're highlighting is why they have to get in the winter and get out there.
Absolutely. And I want to bring up a big point that you talked about, and I want you guys to conversate about it. Just the fact that we are, and it may seem different in some eyes, but the way that we are helping colleges, right, be able to make sure that their players are being taken care of. Because to your point, they have a lot of other stuff going on, right? They have to recruit for the years below. They have to make sure that the field's all good. They have to make sure their paperwork's in order, their lineups are set. How have you, and I'll talk to you, Eric, about this question specifically, seen not like a reliance, because obviously nobody wants to go, hey, I need you to take care of my players, but kind of a weight off the shoulders of a college coach to be like, okay, he's at a place I know he can go and still be successful?
Yeah, I mean, I talk to families a lot in the recruiting process. I think there's a false assumption out there that colleges, particularly Division I's, like do what we do, and they have all the tech and they have all these advanced systems, and the strength coach talks to the trainer who talks to the coaches. Like, that is not the case in most places. And so, really even the upper levels of the game still are very segmented. All right, and then what we do here is obviously the opposite of segmented. We connect the dots. So, we're kind of testing a consultation model on a local university, and putting in our arm care protocols, doing some of the things that we do here as far as like, hey, here's how you take this number and attach it to this number. You take skill and you attach it to strength. You take arm care and attach it to what happens in the weight room. What happens in the weight room affects your throwing program, And so I think, as we move down this path and build stronger and stronger relationships in the college world, that more and more schools are going to kind of look to us to like help them. Like, everyone knows it's the right way to do things, but no one really dives off the deep end and systemizes it. Mm-hmm. We've systemized it, and so I think that you're going to start seeing more and more involvement of us at the college level, kind of helping them connect the dots.
And would you say, and I don't just playing devil's advocate, but would you say that's just being stubborn as a person, or not honestly not knowing what it is, and I don't want to touch it because I've never done it before, and I'm afraid it'll ruin what I have.
Yeah, it's the normal old baseball model, right? Like, where everyone has their role and everyone does their thing, and they don't integrate together. And as we know, baseball's the slowest of slow adopters, yes. And they just don't want to change. So it could be coaches like not wanting to dive down that path. It could be a resources thing. Mm-hmm. Like we don't have we can only lift Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 7 a.m. There's a scrimmage on Friday. The guy has to lift Friday morning. We know a guy shouldn't be lifting the same day he's going to go out and throw a ton of pitches, but
there's no choice.
It might not be a choice. Well, there is a choice, and it's kind of releasing control and giving athletes some different things to follow. Maybe the guy has to lift on Saturday, but there's no strength coach there, but he still follows the program. So stuff like that.
Yeah. And so obviously a lot of the people like, well, how do we get there, right? So talk about how we are trying to implement this into making sure that colleges are applicable and are able to trust the players are doing something right in the winters.
It's the way we do it, it's relatively simple, because you're talking about just the communication and and like all the data that we're actually getting, right? So it's like we have all this data to say like, hey, here's what we're doing, here's why we're doing it, and then the transparency to the colleges is like, once we get that communication stream, it's going to be a lot easier for colleges to know that when they come in here, like, they're going to be getting what they need.
I think it's right now it's simple as like those athletes show up ready to go.
Yeah.
Where like Eric with his previous college coaching experience, and I was this player when I was playing. You knew who didn't do anything for 4 to 6 weeks, and all of a sudden this is bugging, my hamstring hurts, my elbow's tweaked, my shoulder is getting sore. Like, you didn't do anything for the entire winter break. 4 weeks is an eternity of time,
it's a long time
when it comes to, okay, hey, we did all this preparation, all this training, all these things during the fall, and then it's like 4 weeks off, 6 weeks off, and you just sit around and play video games all winter break. That's what I did. Yeah. And then you show up and, what do you know? You're hurt in the first month, and then you gotta get hurt. What?
That brings up another good point.
Yeah, no, it's like you're like, what do you like? Again, like all these things start happening, and and you've had this structure and this consistency, and you had feedback and accountability and all these things built out, and then you get released to go home, and then you don't have any of those things anymore. It's like, okay, yeah, you are going to do what's comfortable and easy. You're going to want to go and just do BP with your buddies. You're going to want to just throw random bullpens and just play long toss and show up to a random high school field and do all those things. Like, you can keep doing that, but the statistics of arm injuries, the inconsistency of performances we see at the the highest levels, all those things are telling us, hey, like that way of doing things is just not going to work. So I think the winter break it falls into the category for me personally one of the biggest mistakes and regrets of my playing career, because especially as a pitcher, like if you don't do anything for 4 weeks and you just sit around and again play video games, like you are going to show up so far behind, and you're really going to kind of screw yourself going into the spring.
On that point, like we know for an objective fact that the vast majority of arm injuries happen within the first 2 months of the season, and we know because they're not trained to withstand the stress that they're given early in the season. So again, if we take off the winter and we go cold turkey into the season, and then all of a sudden I'm pitching in mid to late February and expect to go throw 80 pitches my first outing, and I haven't taken the prior 2-3 months to acclimate to that kind of stress, that's where things break down. Like the numbers are the numbers. They're out there, for everyone to learn, and you have to take the winter very seriously, especially if you're a pitcher.
Yeah, I think the what's the rule of thumb? Like for every day you take off of throwing, it's probably going to take 2 to 3 days of throwing a ramp up to get ready.
We do a 16-week on-ramp with our high school pitchers to get them ready for the high school season. 16 weeks.
There's a reason why it's that long.
Yeah, and then there's a reason our guys stay healthy.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think again, if you don't touch a baseball, you just like you basically screw around for 4 to 6 weeks, and then you show up on campus and you wonder like why you're not playing, and that one guy that you don't like is playing over you because they've grinded and got after it. It's like you got nobody to blame other than yourself.
Yeah,
so
it's pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
And so just to the piece, and I don't want anybody listening to this think like, oh, they're just trying to scare whoever the athlete is, but talk about really ever since COVID, there's been a lot. Obviously, the college portal is talked about all the time, but college baseball has gotten more, in my opinion, more cutthroat than ever because of what happened. Talk about how, and obviously you can touch on from the coach's point of view. Obviously, we train athletes in here that are in that model right now. Talk about how just, if like you said, like if you take that winter off, it's just gonna screw you in the end because of how cutthroat it is.
I mean, I just read an article right now, like they're talking about going to a 40-man roster at the Division I level with no tracers, which means they can give as many people as they want scholarships. That is going to make what is a cutthroat model even more cutthroat because there's more bodies involved now, and there's more bodies involved right now because of COVID still, and like I said, it trends older because of the people that had extra eligibility now, 22, 23 years old. There's no doubt about it. It's cutthroat. Like we see the results all the time. People don't want to acknowledge it, but it is. If you're not good enough, you're going to get cut. And here's why: the head coach of that team, if he doesn't win, he gets fired. It's flat out that simple. So guys don't like to get fired, so they're gonna get rid of players that don't help them win ball games, so they can continue to feed their families and pay their rent. And so we have to acknowledge that, and players have to understand. And I say to them all the time, like. Do not think that you won't get cut if you're not ready to go. With the size of these rosters and what's going on right now, and everyone having the freedom to transfer, like these coaches are honing in more and more on the guys that are going to help them win, not just building relationships.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So now my question to you guys. So hearing that, right, and being that it is so cutthroat, and Erik, you can chime in on this as well. On the skill side, how important is it to you guys to make sure that we're doing everything in the systematically correctly so that this kid doesn't get cut?
Well, you're talking about a short amount of time. If we're talking about the winter, we're talking about a short amount of time to get whatever progress we can, so then you are ready to go. It's not like to Erik's point, it's like nothing's really solidified anymore with the amount of guys that are on this team, right? And so it's about making sure that you can stand out and doubling down on your strengths and what you can do to perform at the highest level when you get there, so you're giving yourself a chance. There's really no other way to say it, right? Like we need these guys to perform. We need them to perform now, and you have a break that allows you to go to a system that is very systematic in development to be able to get you to where you need to go.
I think the coolest thing, and we all look forward to this every year, and we do it during the winter, is live ABs. Like that is the number one thing, and I think that's a huge X factor that we're able to offer here. It's why this cage is set up the way that it is. We will have varying levels and talents, very high and some medium, that are going to be throwing live, and we're going to create as game-like an environment as possible. You need that during the winter. Again, doing flips and T-work is just not going to be enough. Having, going with your buddies out to the field and just doing feel-good BP, throwing a bullpen to your high school catcher who's back in town, those things are just not good enough for you to be prepared. A game-like environment, balls and strikes, egos and pride on the line, facing a bunch of different pitchers, getting a bunch of ABs in a very short amount of time. I think that's the part I look forward to the most, and a very unique opportunity that we provide during the winter, where it's like, hey, we're going live. We're going to have umpires. We're going to have balls and strikes. We're going to look at your data, and we're going to see if it actually plays in as close to a game-like environment as we can get. And I think that's another huge thing. Again, like just doing enough, or just following your college program, or just checking the boxes during your break it's going to set this trajectory of that roller coaster.
Yep.
Where it's like, okay, I'm inconsistent and I'm not prepared, and it's like, well, makes sense.
And another thing for college hitters, like the high school guys will have thrown live ABs. Like we got potential first-round draft picks, and 20-plus Division I guys are going to be throwing live ABs this winter. Like that could be an awesome opportunity for them to get like some super high-level timing and perceptual aspect of hitting down before they get to back to their college.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so we're going to have 3, 4, 95-plus guys. We're going to have
Well, don't scare them.
Yeah.
It will be videotaped. So make sure you guys are here for it.
Yeah, I think the college population, everyone, especially right now, we have the most probably educated group of baseball players ever, just because of Instagram, Facebook, all of that.
And also willing to learn too. Like that's the part that kind of gets me is, a lot of people are kind of stuck at especially when you learn something and you're good at it, and you're like, okay, I'm good at this. I'm doing this for as long as I can. And some dudes can literally ride that out till they make it pro. And I've seen a willingness of a kid really come in here. He's like, no, I like to do this. And it's like, well, okay, let's try this. And they don't do well with it, but the fact that they can think it over and understand that the system, okay, this in the end is really going to get me to where I am. And then the progress starts to kick in. Like we have a kid today. The progress is starting to kick in. And you can really see, he's like, oh, this is actually very beneficial to where I'm trying to get.
And I think it relies on the premise of it's not our opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not what Chase thinks or Erik thinks. Or hey, this is the winter strength program for baseball players that I did when I was playing.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with that. Here's what the numbers tell us. Here's your goal. Here's how these numbers are going to support you in that endeavor and keep, move you closer there. And when you see progress, that builds confidence. And all right, I'm ready to go. So I think that's why we're seeing that with our older athletes, because again, most educated population that we probably work with is they know a lot. So
Shout out Twitter. So just to the last point, so like we've talked about, the game is changing. Obviously COVID has changed the game and more than just the playing factor, but training is still king. Right? Training and developing is still where we want to be at all the time. So just open question, talk about where in the future we want to be able to transcend the athletes in the winter portion of their training.
Like winter and summer, just as you said that, some popped in my mind, we're getting more and more messaging from college coaches like, hey, we're not sending our guys out next summer. We're going to send them to you to train. The coaches are getting on board, and obviously, I say this all the time. The recruiting process, your college coach is your god.
Yes.
Your college coach tells you when to wake up, when to eat, when to go to class. He literally directs your entire life. So,
4 years.
Those guys are now starting to be like. You need to train over the winter, and you're not going to go play 50 games this summer. You're going to go get bigger and stronger. You're going to go work on these things that I need you to do to help me win.
Yeah.
And like I said, so they can keep their job. So I think that's a big bridge that's being crossed right now, especially in this area. I said, we have very strong relationships with the coaches in this area, and they're messaging out loud and clear that hey, our guys are going to start training instead of playing all the time.
So, we can make this the last thing, but just to that point, talk about how that is just in itself the gap of bridging from I need you to throw 7 innings in a game in summer to I need you to understand how to pitch and understand you need to develop. Talk about how that is just in my opinion, just going to transcend the sport of baseball altogether.
It just makes really a lot of sense,
Yeah.
right? If you're a college baseball player and you play 56 games in the spring, plus playoffs, plus scrimmages and everything, plus fall,
That's fly.
why do I need to go play another 50 games in 58 days in the summer in the Midwest with some town that doesn't have a gym, eating crappy food and taking 6-hour bus rides? If I'm a Division I head coach, why would I possibly? Now, if a kid was a talented freshman that didn't get any playing time because he was buried, like a little bit of a different story. But for the vast majority of the guys that got a decent amount of playing time, they shouldn't be going out and playing more this summer. They should be like improving their skills so they can help that team win, so they can get drafted, which helps in recruiting. Like it's a revolving circle that like I said, more and more guys are starting to realize, like, hey, the old model isn't the way to do this. There's a new model to drive in development at the college level.
I think we're at the point now too, with the point that you brought up, to where it's like it's not an opinion. It's like you can't play.
Yeah.
You just can't. The human body's not gonna be able to handle that. Like, we need to train, we need to develop, there needs to be time for that. And so it's like the summer and winter is the time to do that.
And I think it's more that the age old of like the 10,000 repetitions.
You become a perfectionist with 10,000.
Yeah, like this is how you master this one thing. So the more that you do that, you're going to become a master of it. And I think that's a myth that's starting to break down, especially at the higher levels. Like, no, I want athletes, right? A lot of coaches say I want athletes. I want guys who are athletic and go out and do what I need them to do. Where the old thought process is, well, no, I need more live ABs. I need more in-game experience.
Reps.
Which for certain athletes that could be the case. An overwhelming majority of athletes, it's like almost we need to undo what we just took your body through for the course of the season, so it's prepared for next season. And we can quantify that using our assessments that we do at the facility.
Absolutely. All right, I think we're good. Thank you guys very much for watching Talking Points with KPI, the College Winter Training Edition, episode number 49. Please stay tuned for a special surprise on episode 50 next week. So make sure you follow us at Kinetic Performance Institute on YouTube. All of our socials will be there, so please go follow us on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. Thank you guys very much for listening. Have a great day.